Greetings from Texas. I'm Kirsten Lagore.
And I'm, sorry.
We're working on working together. Executive Director of Student Services for Seguin ISD.
And I'm the Coordinator of Student Services for Seguin ISD, Sarah Martinez.
And what we're going to talk to you all today about is our truancy and attendance initiative called Missing Matadors Matter. Seguin ISD has a mascot, the Matadors, and so that's why we reinforce to all of our students and all of our staff how important it is for all of them to be in school every day. And what RAWI and the attendance software program that we implemented has helped us do in relation to this cartoon here is really identify those students who are about to cut class or who are cutting class so that we can actually provide those interventions before we have too many attendance accumulations. So to give you a quick overview of Seguin ISD, because we know that a lot of people watching come from a variety of different kinds of districts, different sizes, different states, different communities. So to let you know what Seguin ISD is, we have a little over 7,000 students. And so you can see those statistics on the screen, and we have 12 schools. We're a town that has one high school, one alternative high school, and then 2 middle schools and 8 feeder elementary schools. And then in terms of what our team looks like and the size, it's really the student support team, which encompasses a lot of topics, but one of those topics is attendance. And focused directly on attendance is Sarah, with being the coordinator. And we have 2 student support officers who go around, pick up students in the morning and whatnot, and then during the course of the day help the campuses in dealing with attendance issues and the campus staff. And then we, thankfully, we were awarded a grant within Texas that provided us 2 case managers over the course of 3 years, and we're in our 2nd year of that, and they have been integral in actually performing all of these interventions, because it really was above and beyond what we needed campus staff to be doing with what they were already doing of coding absences and talking to parents. But we needed a better system because our attendance rates were just simply not where we wanted them to be, and we knew that we had a community here in Seguin that the importance of going to school was just not very high. Missing school for whatever reason was kind of part of the culture, and we needed to work on that culture within the community, get people engaged in understanding why it's so important to come to school. And so that's really been what we've been working on, and this attendance software has really helped us work on all those interventions. So this is what our initiative is called, Missing Matadors Matter, because missing school is missing out. And when we first started, when I came to the school district from being a prosecutor, we were really focused on truancy. And because we knew the ramifications of students not going to school often led to delinquency, and then we were dealing with a lot of truant issues in the juvenile system. What we have evolved into within the school district is really the philosophy that all absences absolutely matter. It's not just the unexcused absences, it's all absences. And we all know that all students matter, absolutely all students, students who are coming to school and students who aren't. So we focus on them all. And what you'll eventually see is working with the campuses on chronic absences. As a school district, our main focus is on educating students. That is what our charge is every day, is to have students learn so that they are in a better position for what their futures are going to hold. So we know that students who don't come to school are academically at risk. And how Texas works, and I think that it is in line with a lot of other states, is that students are deemed to be chronically absent, and the definition for that is what we call the 90% rule. Students have to be in school 90% of the time. So you can miss up to 10% of the overall days for any reason, whether that be sickness or funerals or whatever. But if you do miss beyond that 10%, then you're considered a chronic absence. So we work with our administrators and our campus staff to determine who are those students that are at risk for being chronically absent. So that includes your excused absences, which is the vast majority of what our data shows us, plus our truant students or truant days. But then we also have our suspensions. So we look at discipline and work with the behavior teams, because if we suspend students, we're really creating our own attendance issue as a district. But all of those things are what add up to students who are chronically absent. So truancy is something that absolutely matters, because that is more of an intentional reason as to why a student is not going to school. So Texas has a variety of legal requirements. A few years back, the legislature decriminalized truancy for a lot of good reasons. And we were helping students well after they graduate, having to deal with a lot of the issues that a truancy case, when it was a criminal offense in Texas, the ramifications that it had. So decriminalizing was good for many things, but at the same time, it also took away a lot of the consequences. And for some of our students, that seemed to be the only thing that got their attention. So we had to find something else that would get the same kind of impact. And that's when all these interventions came into play. So Texas has some legal requirements, such as if students are homeless or in foster care, or they're pregnant, or they're the principal income earner, or if they're in the special ed programming, it requires additional proactive efforts from the district and campus personnel. And this limits the court options. We use courts as an intervention, but they're really, a lot of the punitive consequences were taken away from courts. So a lot of courts in Texas, a lot of communities struggle to even have prosecutors or court systems engage in truancy at all with us anymore, because it's too complicated. The flow chart is over a page long with hundreds of little boxes, and they don't want to deal with that. So that means this is a community effort led by the school district, and a need to partner with a lot of outside entities to help. So you can see when we have the box or the circle of truancy and chronic, what we're working on there and what the emphasis is, but really the emphasis is on the kid and how to bring them back into school. And what that means for us, it's really a team effort. It is the campus and the district have to be aligned, and you have to communicate. And our district, you can kind of wrap your head around a district that has 1 high school, 2 middle schools, 8 elementaries, district office. We all have the ability to work together. There are some districts out there where it would take hours to even drive across the entire district. So we're able to maintain a good team effort here, and then really involve our community in understanding the importance of going to school, and get them involved so that they will help the campuses, even with work hours for high school students, and make sure that they're on board and understanding why it's important that we educate our community. Because we know, just like this little cartoon shows, is that some kids really, really don't want to go to school, and we need to turn that around. And that's a big climate issue within schools. It is how they're greeted in the morning, whether they show up before school, on time, or 15 minutes late, or 30 minutes late, they still need to be greeted with a smile and we're glad you're here attitude, instead of, oh, you're here. The key to all of this is building relationships, and that really starts with the attendance clerks, the people in the front office, the administrators, and the teachers, because looks on adults' faces directly impact how kids are going to have their day go. If it starts with a frown and some kind of negative attitude or saying, then that kid is not going to want to come back tomorrow. And then we, our student support officers, will be picking that kid up in the morning that's in the cartoon who doesn't want to go to school. When I talk to administrators about the importance of attendance, because administrators have a lot of things on their plate, we really discuss the fact that attendance is directly related to the overall goal of educating kids every day. We know that improving attendance also, it exposes kids to language, which is key starting in the pre-K years, when kids are exposed to language-rich environments in the classroom. And that is particularly key in Seguin and other communities where a large percentage is low income. That is super important to get students into the classrooms. And then the time on task. Students need to start learning early on the benefit from classroom instruction when they're only going to get that if they're there. If they're missing that, then they are missing the instruction that they're going to need. Being on track for success is key. Going around failure, kids get to failure real quick if they're missing a lot of school. So getting to success is only by being there. And then being college and career ready. I know all states promote college and career readiness, and the only way that you're going to be ready to actually go to college and attend classes when it's your decision whether or not you go to class, and whether or not you show up for a job, that is dependent upon attendance. And so getting that instilled early is important. And then overall engagement, the hands being raised. If you're there, if kids are there, they're more likely to know what's going on. We deal with a lot of high school students and missing math. You miss a few days of algebra and you really are lost. And it's hard to get students then caught up because they often have a lot of other gaps. And so we really have to start early with the interventions for attendance so that by the time students are in secondary school, they understand why they need to be there. So here is Seguin ISD's truancy intervention plan. We had parts of this in place, but once we brought in the software package, Sarah constructed a plan with specific qualifiers so that certain interventions would happen at certain times.
So at 3 unexcused absences on the campus, our attendance clerk will send out an attendance warning letter. That attendance warning letter just states the law, the importance of being in school, and ask the parent if they have any questions to give the campus a call and speak with the attendance clerk. At 5 to 7 unexcused absences, we do a personal parent phone call. Most of our campuses are already calling kids or parents daily if they're not there. But this is more of a personal phone call of, you know, what's going on? Is there anything we can do to help? And noting those notes, that way we know that the attendance clerk did make contact with the parent. At 7 to 10 unexcused absences, the administrator does a behavior contract, and that's an attendance behavior contract where the administrator either brings in the parent or does it over the phone, depending on if the parent can come in or not, and just goes over the attendance, goes over their grades. If they have discipline issues, maybe going over the discipline, just to see, again, what can we do to help those kids come to school. Once they are put on a contract, they are supervised by both of our case managers. We have one at the secondary campuses or one at our middle school campuses, and then one at our high school campus. So they kind of continue to work with those families, do check-in, check-outs. I know at the high school, Mr. Coates will give them a sign-in, sign-out sheet to where daily they go to each class and have that teacher sign whether or not they were there, and then they turn those in at the end of the day. And then at 10 to, or more at 15 unexcused absences, what we did is we got our JP court involved, and they are an extra intervention to where they send out a letter to our parents inviting them in to come in and kind of listen to us and listen to the judge about if you continue to miss, what are the possibilities of, you know, court sanctions if you do miss. And then of course those are monitored by myself, and if they continue to miss, then we look at a court filing with our JP court.
And how Texas works, we can only file on parents unless the community were to have a truancy court, which Guadalupe County, where we're at, does not have due to what I said about all those legal issues. So you'll see that a lot of what we have in place is about developing those relationships, and it's a whole child approach. You can't take attendance just in a silo and not deal with the other issues going on with the students, the behavior issues, the grade issues, because oftentimes we see those things all go together. Students who are not learning and don't know what's going on are more likely to have behavior issues, because it's better to look bad than look stupid. Nobody wants to go to school and be exposed for not knowing what's going on. So it's better they would prefer to act up. So we deal with some of those behavior issues, but we know that it's tied to attendance. Once we get students in school, tend to behave better. So it's very important as part of the attendance plan that it's not just letters and phone calls. People are the real reason this works, and it has to be the right people in the right places doing the right things. Those personal phone calls work a lot different than robocalls. Robocalls are necessary for information. However, if you really want to find out what's going on with a person, you have to make personal contact, find out what barriers are going on, and then work with teams to resolve those. But we also have incentives, things that encourage students to come to school. And that involves communication. That is super important to have the administrators communicate to students. And I will say that I've got 3 kids in the district, and it works very well for my youngest one, and he'll come home and say, "Oh, tomorrow I get to wear a hat if I come to school," because that's been communicated, and then he's very excited about one of his particular hats. So not that he has an attendance issue because I'm his mother, but at the same time, he really likes the fact he gets to wear a hat. So we work with campuses on short-term goals because sometimes kids don't have a lot of control over their family environment. So weekly, even daily, you know, if you come to school tomorrow, you get this, you get to do this, or end of the week. And then students then encourage their parents, like, "No, I've really got to get up and go to school, Mom, because I can get a pizza party at the end of the month if I'm the top class." So some of those short-term goals are working within our district, and really we depend on the campus the attendance team to know what works for them. Some of our campuses work for breakfast tacos, and then others, you know, having cell phone time at lunch. It really depends on what grade level. And then those long-term goals for the students that are really trying to get the big win, like the bicycles or the electronics. We have raffles throughout the district for those things, and trying to get people really excited about coming to school. And you really have to figure out what's going to motivate your kids.
One of the biggest long-term goals we had last year was final exam exemption for high school students if they were in school from, I believe it was right at the beginning of April till the end of May. Every day they got to exempt themselves from their final exams. So that was big.
That was big. So now we're going to just dip down into data a little bit just to show you what Seguin ISD has seen since we've implemented the software in conjunction with all of these interventions. And hopefully we don't all look like Woody, because that's what some people look like when they see data. Let's see. So you'll see for Seguin ISD, we have a long way to go. When we're looking at last year's attendance data, that is where our elementary schools were. Ball is an early childhood center, so that's the pre-K center. And of course, that's where you have more of your illness. That's the first time kids are being exposed to any kind of germ. And so we know that there's a certain percentage there that have to work through all of those antibodies. But Ball went up almost 2 percentage points from the year prior. And then with our other elementary schools, you can see we had 3 right around that 1%, and 1% is a huge gain. And then quite a few that were around the 0.5 percentage point. So those were big celebrations for the district. And then you'll see with our secondary schools, looking at our middle schools, you know, we went through and reviewed the data after the fact. We had one almost get a 1 percentage point improvement, and we're working specifically at the other one this year. But our high school was really the largest celebration for the district because, of course, that's where most of our students are at. We have about 2,000 students there, and it almost hit the 2% improvement mark, which was gigantic. Our 2 other schools there that have many less students, MBLC is our alternative high school, and then Burgess was our discipline alternative education program. And those students, of course, are higher at risk for a variety of issues. But our district total overall was really a 1% gain district-wide, which was a gigantic celebration for the district. and obviously a good encouragement for the school board as to why we maintain the software program and the people that are helping to encourage attendance district-wide. And then we get into the accounting of this all. So not only do we have the school board and the superintendent and the people in the curriculum department all understanding the importance of attendance, but we have our business department, which is, they are a big fan of all of the attendance incentives that we do within the district because it affects the bottom line. So when you look at our ADA funding, we're looking at our overall enrollment and our trend line and attendance. And our trend line year after year, they start out the beginning of the year, but then students decline in terms of attendance. So you can see there the actual attendance decline from 17-18 related to the refined ADA. And our goal was to, with the red dotted line, to intersect with that blue line. We already knew what the blue line was going to be. A goal was to intersect it and get above it, and we did that. So that was a big gain. So our CFO is very happy with us. And you'll see on the next slide, when you consider what our budget is with the green dots, it's important that we stay above that line, and we're able to do that thanks to the attendance incentives that and interventions that we've got in place. So what we utilize in Seguin ISD, we, in terms of communication, are brochures and posters and whatnot. So we're going to have those on the next few slides. But our plans for this year, based on where we ended last year, was to have early parent-student contact. And by doing that, now we have parents that call mad and want to know why we're bothering them so much. But when we explain that it's really just to communicate, those early interventions are worded pleasantly in an effort to really help parents and students. And as the interventions increase and the number of absences increase, they get a little more sternly worded. But we've had a lot of good discussions with parents and getting parents on board. Our focus was to have more interventions with those chronic absences. And then we know how people communicate now, and we really need to get up with how people are communicating by way of social media. So highlighting and encouraging through social media as a means was really important. So we started the hashtag Missing Matadors Matter, and then we're on Twitter and Facebook. And I think that that is, you know, we're in the beginning process of getting that going, but that stuff can go viral. We want to get better with making videos and getting more students involved. And sometimes we even have groups who could create things for you, and that's what we're working with them to do. And then business partnerships, getting out into the community to say, how can you help us? Because businesses want employees who come to work. And we are a large employer locally within Seguin, but we've got a lot of industrial and other businesses who definitely want our graduates to come and work for them, but they want the ones who actually come to school. So helping us ultimately helps them. So we're working to encourage more of those partnerships. And then working with our justice courts, and that includes, of course, juvenile probation, because sometimes these students are supervised as well by probation officers, but really getting on board with folks who will bring people in, talk to them, and being part of the interventions. And this is the inside of one of our brochures, and it's important to have a course where we live in South Central Texas. We're close to San Antonio. It's essential that everything that we put out to parents is in both English and Spanish, because of course those are the predominant languages here. Some of you may be in communities where there's multi-languages, but it's important because you really need to communicate to people in a way that they're hearing, and if you don't, then you get disregarded, and that is not good. So we're very aware when we make phone calls and whatnot that we're able to communicate effectively to parents. And it's really important to just put this into common sense language for parents as well, because there may not just be an understanding about why attendance matters. So those are some of the things that parents can do. And did they know these things? And have them understand what the amount of days really means. So Our goals in promoting Missing Matadors Matter is really encouraging less than 10 absences for the entire school year, on top of all the holidays that we get within working for a school district and going to school, but less than 10 absences for the year. We also promote that with our teachers as well, because if students are seeing teachers missing a lot too, it tends to impact their behavior. But our attendance goals for elementary, we want to get to where we have 98% attendance from students, in secondary between 95 and 96, and we want again to increase the district attendance above 1%, 1 to 2%. That means two things to a district. Of course, it means the financial benefit of that, but it also means that many more students are learning, and that is really what's important. This is one of the posters that we have at schools and that we're promoting at businesses so that the word gets out of what it is that we're trying to do. So now we're going to look at some questions that have come in.
How are you mitigating the risk involved in picking up students and bringing them to school?
We do, within Seguin ISD, have 2 student support officers who have Seguin ISD vehicles, because there is concern with picking up students in terms of liability and allegations and whatnot. And so how we have mitigated that is, one, by having district vehicles with insurance and whatnot, but they also have cameras and so that anything that happens inside the car is recorded, audio as well as video. And then we have a standard form when we do transport a student, so that the parent or guardian signs off on understanding that they are being transported by a Seguin ISD person. Occasionally, some of our case managers do transport students as well, but we utilize the same Seguin ISD form in order to actually have that consent to transport students.
Next question. How have you been able to fund the bigger incentives, or are they based on donations?
So that's a great question. Even some of the funding that we've gotten from grants, it doesn't allow the use of funds for incentives. And students, it's great to have those kind of prizes and giveaways like movie tickets or gift cards, Amazon cards. So we do rely on donations, and the schools go around. Sometimes we'll do things like pickle sales, because for some reason kids love pickles, and those funds then that are generated can be used for attendance incentives. So there's a lot of creative ways. Interestingly, some things pop up, like we were asked to do a survey related to drug information, and that came with monetary, like $500 if you did it. And so I encourage the schools to do that and then use that $500 to be used for attendance incentives. And so that encouraged both of the schools to do that. And we know that right now, like this year, the AirPods, those are a big hit.
Bluetooth speakers.
Those are things that seem to incentivize students. But then, of course, there's also free things that can incentivize students to come to school. Like if they're there the next day, they can wear a hat, you know, things that don't cost anything, but also have an impact. So there's things that you can do that cost money and don't cost money. I know a lot of our elementary schools talk to their parent teacher groups, PTOs, PTAs, whatever they're called, and they help out as well with providing some rewards connected to attendance.
So next question, can you give specifics about your grant positions for secondary students?
Sure. So we did reference during our talk, we have 2 case managers that we acquired through a truancy grant within the state of Texas. And so that afforded us the ability to get 2 case managers, because where our gap really was, once we had the software program giving us the identification of students and the interventions that needed to be done, the letters and the phone calls are things that our attendance clerks as well as administrators and counselors could work on. However, it was the after process with students who are on behavior contracts and then monitoring them really like a juvenile probation officer would, giving them extra care and attention. And things come up that you're making direct contact with parents and seeing the students in the hallway. It's really just giving these kids who are identified on that higher, that more tier 2, giving them more so that they're more in compliance. And we just didn't have the existing staff within the district to really pull that off. And so these case managers have been able to do that. And what we're seeing, especially at the secondary levels, because we knew that that's when it was really needed, it's working. This year, we just went over looking at our data, and our high school is almost at a 2% improvement from even last year's data. And what that's showing us is because we've got that case manager there who is constantly talking to, encouraging those students, as well as making phone calls if they're not there.
Next question. Does your state provide incentives for improved performance?
So attendance itself is connected into the state accountability system. So for school districts, there's a lot of reasons why you need to care about attendance. And how the state encourages everybody to care is when they attach it to accountability. So it is tied in, and so not just for the funding aspect of attendance, but also ultimately to how schools are graded. So it matters all the way around that kids are coming to school.
And the last question is, how quickly did you start seeing results? What were the first data points and indicators you saw?
So I would say really early on, and of course, because we were using a new software program, we were monitoring it, and the most natural place to monitor is at that grading period point. So every 6 weeks, we do get a weekly data grade membership coming out of the technology department. So we're able to see really live data and numbers of what's showing improvement. And one of the reports that we would be seeing for each campus was comparing them to the last year at that same time frame, and whether or not there's been an increase or a decrease in attendance. And so we're glancing at that real regularly, but especially at those grading period points, making an assessment. And really by that first grading period, we were already seeing the improvement with making the deliberate interventions that the program was identifying. Because prior to having a software system in place that was dealing with attendance, we were just running, kind of like we were back in the dark ages, running and printing out these reports. And so by the time mid-year comes, these reports are killing trees, especially for the high school, showing any kid with 3 or more unexcused absences, and then manually determining who gets letters, who gets phone calls, and you just simply can't stay ahead of it. This system, right from the beginning, was making an impact because those interventions were happening. And with those interventions, we were also getting a lot of parents who were surprised at being notified, and even arguing, that, well, that's not possibly true. But then when you actually show them, there's always an answer, whether kids aren't turning in notes or whatever. And that was really good for the parent communication part right in the beginning. That seems to have leveled off now that we've had it in place for a while, but definitely at the beginning, there was a lot of contact. It looks like that's all of our questions.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Thank you. Special thank you to everyone at Seguin ISD, Kirsten Lagore and Sarah Martinez. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.